Welcome to the TEK2day podcast powered by CEO Rater. It's your host, John Maeda. Visit us online at TEK2day.com. Check us out at CEORater.com. Rate your company, rate your CEO. We are about to hit the publish button on a TEK2day article entitled A Common Sense Approach to Crisis Management, Leveraging a Six-Step Plan. So this comes off of COVID-19 and the fact that 99% of what we're doing is reactionary. So we offer a six-step plan that's sort of a common sense approach to address these type of crises in a proactive manner. And this was based off of, if some of you know the Pareto principle, or better known as the 80-20 rule. It's a rule where you focus your effort around that which matters. So, for example, in the world of M&A, let's say, for example, you're looking at a target company and it's a competitive deal and maybe you only have 30 days to complete diligence over an exclusive period, an exclusive negotiation period. And let's say we're talking about a reasonable company in terms of size. Let's say it's a couple $100 million. They've got a number of different products that drive revenue, and you don't have time to master everything, obviously, in 30 days. You have limited resources as a corp dev M&A team. And so, therefore, you focus on the 20% that drives the 80, the old 80-20 rule. So maybe there are 2 or 3 products in that target company's portfolio that drive 80% of profitability, 80% of revs. And so you focus on that which matters. So if we took that approach with COVID as an example, perhaps we would, if we were to do this within the confines of the six-step plan, number one would be define the mission. So if the mission is to mitigate the risk of mortality amongst those who are 70 years and older, that's the target population, if you will, the at-risk group. So how do we keep those people safe without shutting down the economy? So if we were to, number 2, focus on that target group, we've defined the target group, now we're going to focus on that target group, we would recommend that those people in the target group, 70 years and older, remain home for the next month. Travel at your own risk. That's our guidance. That's our recommended guidance. It's not a mandate. Right? We're not mandating that they shelter in place. We're providing recommended guidance. Number 3, stop the feel-good measures. And what we mean by that is, with respect to social distancing, we were slow to act on social distancing. If you listen to a number of infectious disease experts, they say the time for social distancing was really in early January, that we missed the boat on it, and now it's largely a feel-good measure. So in the case of COVID, just stop it. Let's get back to some level of normalcy. Maybe you don't have the 50,000 person event, but everything else we allow to go back to normal. And then we can do better next time. Should COVID rear its head again next winter, we can take proactive steps around social distancing early, not after the fact, not when it's no longer effective. Number 4, and this is probably the most important thing, define a standard operating procedure both at the federal, state, and local levels. So, for example, we need to define and implement SOPs to both mitigate the risk of infectious disease, whether it be natural disease or weaponized, which is a real risk, by the way. And number 2, mobilize healthcare post-infection for those at-risk groups. So these, when we say define these procedures, these need to be procedures that are written down, unambiguous, uniformly understood, and regularly drilled. Drilled at the government level, drilled in schools, drilled at home. As I say in sports, games are not won on game day. Number 5, public-private partnerships, and we're seeing some of this in the Trump administration. But recruit the large healthcare providers and the pharma companies to help lead the effort in number 4. Right, so the pharma guys to help develop vaccinations to address the risk of these diseases up front. So have a regular R&D program with the top, I don't know, 3 half dozen pharmaceutical companies where they're thinking about bleeding edge technologies to mitigate the risk of something like COVID, number one. And then on the healthcare services side, so if you think about Amazon and its Haven Healthcare Initiative, if you think about Walmart and its clinics, United Health Group, CVS Caremark, a number of the larger private equity-owned neighborhood clinics, work with these folks, form a public-private partnership with these folks to develop standard operating procedures for mobilizing healthcare once an event does occur. So how do we quickly mobilize healthcare and get care to those who most need it? And number 6, taxpayer bailouts. We're seeing a lot around this, where the airline industry wants a bailout, specific companies like Boeing want bailouts, a number of other groups want bailouts, and of course there's a bit of moral hazard. These industries wanted bailouts back in 2008 during that downturn. So we have a few rules for how we would handle a bailout. So in the case of Boeing, as an example, right, they want double-digit billions in the way of a bailout. But meanwhile, over the past number of years, they spent, I think, 45% of their capital on buybacks. They're paying out a dividend. Boeing was in the news a couple days ago saying that if they received a bailout, they would consider curtailing their dividend, which is just a joke. Right? So number one, we would force mergers amongst, for example, let's look at the airline industry. If you guys want to bail out, the first thing you're going to do is merge. You're going to figure out how to self-rationalize. Darwinism, survival of the fittest. So maybe you force the top 3 guys to become 2 or something to that effect. But force mergers, and that can provide a bit of a buffer. That's prior to receiving a bailout. Number 2, these are some of the specific terms. So if you take that action and you agree to merge, and you still want a taxpayer handout, I'll call it. I won't call it taxpayer assistance. I'll call it what it is. It's a handout. The taxpayer is going to get an ROI. So number 1, the government, i.e. the taxpayer, is going to take a minimum 50% equity stake and become a senior secured lender. So we're going to be the top creditor. Number 2, all buybacks cease, all dividends cease immediately. And number 3, and I'm not sure if this happens upon receipt of the bailout or maybe after a 30 or 60-day period, but CEO, CFO steps down. That's automatic. So if you want it, okay, but you lose your job. So that's the 6-step plan. We provide a little more detail in the written article, which you'll be able to read tomorrow on Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's all for now. See you next time.